My name, as some of you may know, is Jacob Bargaremo. I'm aware that today I am talking about something most of you will probably end up disagreeing with. But hear me out, because if you think a little bit like me, you'll probably end up finding your opinions weighed. Now, I'm sure you've heard about them. They're all over the news right now, and you know they have the possibility to destroy, well, everything. Um, I'm talking about nuclear weapons, and how they could potentially be the destroyer, the bane of mankind, but maybe, just maybe, the savior. Now, what would happen if one of these world destroyers left their silo and hit its mark? Nothing good, I'll tell you that. Starting with a mass panic, a million blocked phone lines, 1,000 car blockups. Think of what happened to Hawaii when there was that fake nuke warning, but much, much worse. So already we know when just a few nuclear weapons are dropped, it damages the environment for years. Maybe you're thinking, well, I don't live in a big city or anything, so I'll be fine. Well, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but no matter how far away from the blast you are, you still may be affected by the long-term effects of nuclear weapons like radiation, climate change, and tainted food and water. Now, if you're still not scared of nuclear weapons, listen to this. In 1945, the U.S. dropped two 1-megaton bombs on Japan, which were called Fat Man and Little Boy. The explosions destroyed a mile of sea, and the shockwave traveled 11.5 miles. These were atom bombs, but very close to nuclear bombs. Honestly, not that bad compared to other things. But what about a modern bomb? Way worse. The Tsar bomb, or Tsar Bomba, made by the USSR, has about 50 megatons. To put it in perspective, here's a quote from the Atomic Heritage Foundation. The immense heat from the detonation was capable of causing third-degree burns at a distance of 62 miles from ground zero. The shockwave was felt as far away as a settlement located 430 miles away. The windows shattered at a distance of 560 miles. It leveled an abandoned village 34 miles away, with its explosion reaching 35 miles. Not scared yet? In fact, if there was a full-scale nuclear war, which would only last a few hours, billions of humans and animals on planet Earth would die. The only country with the current capability to completely save its population is Switzerland, with plenty of bunkers, being able to save over 100% of its people. This war would destroy the environment for dozens of years. In most places, the air would be lethal for 1 to 5 years. A pretty good example of what the world would look like after a massive nuclear war is the game series Fallout, which paints a pretty drab world after a nuclear apocalypse, except for, like, the massive green mutants and laser guns. However, plants would regrow and animals would reproduce. Most South American and African countries wouldn't have to deal with direct nuclear threat because they don't have very high populations. Most don't have very high populations. And they're not nuclear capable nations yet. But even then, with our massive global economy, where things are made thousands of miles away, these countries would have massive depressions. During this economic crisis, people would begin to fight, and governments would fail. Then things start getting really bad. The effects from bombs would mess up global temperatures. This would destroy classic growing seasons and harvesting times, and pollute water supplies. People would start to die from rad sickness, starvation, and dehydration, along with violence and infighting. No one would get off scot-free in nuclear war. Now, what if I told you that countries owning nuclear weapons was the key?
That's why we're rehearsing.
So, what if I told you that countries owning nuclear weapons was the key to world I just dropped the bomb. Pun intended. Nuclear weapons are dangerous, but perhaps still certainly necessary. You're probably thinking, what's wrong with this guy? He just presented us with a load of facts about how horrible these weapons are. So how could they be good? Think, if powerful countries own nuclear weapons, why would they fight each other? They wouldn't. Think back to old Europe, where people were always fighting each other. However, once World War I came around and new weapons were invented to more effectively kill people, they didn't fight nearly as much. The more deadly the weapons, it seems, the less people fight because, more people can die. Don't you realize that as well? That's in the wrong spot. Okay. Wait, I'm not. Don't you realize that as long as mutually assured destruction is in place, everyone will be scared to fight each other? It sounds bad, I know it does, but new global laws and regulations will need to be put into place. But it's like how Nikola Tesla wanted to make a powerful electric weapon so no one would even consider attacking each other. It could work. And just stop for a sec because that's in the wrong spot. It's based on a theory of deterrence, which holds that the threat of using strong nuclear weapons against the enemy prevents the enemy's use of some weapons, says Wikipedia. Also, President Jimmy Carter, when talking about MAD, which is mutually assured destruction, which basically means if you nuke me, I'm going to nuke you back. To continue to deter in an era of strategic nuclear equivalence, it is necessary to have nuclear as well as conventional forces, such that in considering aggression against our interests, any adversary would recognize that no plausible outcome or interest would represent a victory or plausible definition of victory. To this end, and so as to refer to the possibility of bargaining effectively to terminate the war on acceptable terms that are favorable and practical. If deterrence fails initially, we must be capable of fighting successfully so that an adversary could not achieve his war aims and would suffer costs that are unacceptable, or even greater than his gains from having initiated an attack. To sum it up, he's saying that these weapons are exactly what stopped the Cold War from getting hot. President Kennedy knew that when he came up with mutually assured destruction, it would save the world from nuclear war. I mean, really, what would you do if you attacked what would you do if you attacked an enemy? You would both be obliterated in hours. Really, I mean, say you have Billy. Billy doesn't like his neighbor Philly. Billy and Philly are both equally strong and smart. Because of this, they don't fight each other, because if they do, no one will win. It'll be a two-way loss. Maybe they'll talk instead. I mean, maybe you're still not convinced. Why do you think the United States hasn't invaded North Korea along with their allies? It's because we both know what would happen if we did. Okay, maybe that is a slightly bad example because how much tension it draws. But did you know there were about 14,500 nuclear weapons in the world? North Korea is only thought to have 10. The reason we're so scared of North Korea is because they don't use their weapons to keep the peace, but instead threaten people with them. 9 countries have nukes, and almost all of them are stable nations. The two of the 3 that you could say are at risk are working to improve. The whole reason we made these weapons was to stop Japan and end a war. Really, if we don't deal with nuclear weapons properly, we could have a big problem. We need to rightly let some places get a hold of these, but not everyone have them. As humans have evolved and improved, our civilizations have become, well, scarier. But scarier isn't always worse. Think back to ancient China or Greece. They're always at war, fighting for sometimes the stupidest reasons that they don't even know about. Then medieval Europe came along after the fall of the Roman Empire. War was constant. Someone was always fighting someone. Cities fell and darkness ruled. Then guns came along and people were like, dang, these things have some power. So people fight less and talk more. Then World War I rolls around, and there's things like mustard gas and artillery that kill people before they even see the enemy. So people start to find out more diplomatic solutions. Last but not least, one of the biggest changes in warfare of all time. Fat Man and Little Boy were dropped on Japan, ending World War II. Not doing too good. If we don't change our thinking that all weapons are bad and could never bring peace, we may doom ourselves. It just might keep the peace if humanity wasn't so focused on war. Think of what we could accomplish. Cures, new technology, incredible things that will bring about prosperity and riches.
Sit tight, I'm going to write out, send out an email.
It is a weird way to keep the peace, but for now, it may be the only way. Look at the evidence. So maybe, just maybe, nuclear weapons aren't the ban, but the savior of our planet. You may still disagree with me, and that's okay. But I hope that I swayed some of you to my side. These weapons may not be the monsters we should see them for. Thank you for your consideration.